I was so pissed. I was so incensed. I was so disoriented. I'm like, what is happening? I've not, in all my years of ministry, I haven't felt this.
Welcome to the Carey Nieuwhof Leadership Podcast on YouTube. Hey, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe. We'd love to have you never miss an episode. Today, I'm sitting down with Tim Ross. You might know him as Upset the Gram or the host of the very popular Basement podcast. We did mic flip, so I'm on the Basement and he's on my show. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Doing some Christmas shopping? Well, shop for the gifts that do more than sit on a shelf. Share the love of Christ with those in need through Convoy's 2024 gift catalog. You can get a gift for yourself, or you can do the in honor of by sharing it with the other people on your list. Go to convoyofhope.org/Carey to learn more. And now, my conversation with Tim Ross. Tim, it's good to be in the basement with you.
I'm grateful that you came here to do your show.
We're in Dallas, Denton,
Yes.
I guess technically.
That's right.
And so there's a lot we're going to talk about.
Okay.
But I want to talk about the basement.
Yes, sir.
Which is not in the basement. I thought we'd be going into the basement of your house. We are on the second floor.
Yeah, the Texas soil
It's like
wouldn't.
Dak Shepard.
Yeah, the Texas soil won't allow for a proper basement.
That's right. I
It
knew
shifts
that about
too much.
Texas.
Yeah, it shifts too much. Yeah.
So we're here on the upper floor. So the basement is a metaphor.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's based on an open vision that God gave me when I was 30. And I don't want it to sound deep. All a vision is a dream that you have when you're awake, right?
Okay.
And so I had this vision, and I'm walking down the street, and there's I walk around the corner, and there's this 100-story building, okay? And all white, 100-story building, and from the street level, this can only happen like in a dream or a vision, I can actually hear music and laughter and people talking from the 100th story. So I walk into the building. It's all white, sterile, no wayfinding, no art, no decor, no nothing. And there's an elevator. So I step into the elevator. And there's a button with an L on it for lobby, which is where I entered.
And you're seeing this while you're awake.
Yeah, while I'm awake, I'm watching this whole vision. And above the L, there's a button for 100, 100.
Okay.
There are no buttons 1 through 99.
Wow.
It's L and then it's 100.
Okay.
So I press 100 and I start going up, right? And it's 100 stories. So my ears are popping, all this happening. The higher I go up, the more self-conscious I become, to where I'm like, do I have any stains on my shirt? Are my jeans wrinkled? Or, do I even deserve to be up here? I'm just start getting really insecure and self-conscious the higher we go. As we get to the top, I become intrinsically aware that everybody on this floor is a very influential person in the body of Christ.
Wow.
Nameless and faceless. But
there's a gravity.
I know that these are influential people in the body of Christ. Okay. So we get to the 100th floor. The door is open. There's a long hallway that leads down to 3 steps, and it's like a beautiful, like New York City penthouse, high rise, living room, posh, beautiful, all these people. Beyond that living room, I can see the balcony, and there's a lot of more people out there. And again, it's this long hallway to get to it. I step off the elevator, and to my far left and my far right, I could not see this when the doors open, only when I stepped off. There are bikini-clad women to my left holding silver chargers, and it's a line of them all the way down the hallway, holding silver chargers with every sin, vice, and weight you could possibly imagine. On the far right, there are Speedo-clad men, 2% body fat, ripped. All of these women on this side were gorgeous. These guys,
is a vision.
Yeah. These guys are ripped, handsome, silver chargers, sin, weight, vice. So I'm thinking to myself, this must be the test. Like, I can't get down there if I succumb to the temptations of what's right here. So let me put my head down and look at my feet and just walk straight down, right? So I get down to the end of the hall and I go down the 3 steps. And you know, like if my boys walked through here right now, it would make you turn your head and at least look.
Yeah, we met them earlier.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So nobody looks up at me. Like I'm entering this room from what seems like the only access point, and nobody looks up. Nobody makes eye contact, and so I'm standing there for a few minutes, and I about 8 feet away from me, there's 2 guys talking, and I'm not close enough to hear what they're saying, but I can see their mouth moving. They're having some chatter. And I look down, Carey, and they're both holding something from the Chargers. And the moment I notice it, one of the guys breaks eye contact with the guy he's talking to, looks at me, looks me up and down, notices I'm not holding anything, goes right back to his conversation. That's the only time I'm noticed, the only time I've acknowledged the whole time. I realize everybody on this floor is holding something from the Silver Chargers. So a few more minutes and then I'm like, I don't think I'm supposed to be up here. So I turn around and walk back up the steps. And now the bikini-clad women are on my right and the Speedo guys are on my left. And the bikini-clad women are a problem. I mean, that is, they're attractive, right? I'm not attracted to this side.
Yeah.
They could probably beat me up though. But but this side, it's like, oh Lord. So again, I'm looking at my feet and I go straight back to the elevator. Elevator doors close. I'm about to press L to go back down to the lobby. I see a faint button underneath the L when it's time to go down that I did not see going up. It's a faint button and it has a B on it. So I press B. I go down 101 stories. Okay. Ears are popping again. I get down to the bottom. As it rests at the bottom, I can hear laughter and talking and just this life-giving kind of joy before the elevator doors even open.
Wow.
When the doors open, one of the things that I have to point out is that on the 100th floor, there were only the personalities, like the big personalities, well-known
church leaders.
Church leaders, again, nameless
all
and
with something,
in their head, right? But
yeah.
like no spouses, no children, no,
right.
You know what I mean? Just
so these folks have compromised.
They're the people, right? When these doors open, it is husbands and wives and friends and cousins and family and kids and everybody. As soon as the doors open, everyone turns their attention towards me. Yeah, they start cheering. They yank me off the elevator. They're hugging me. They're smacking me. Oh my God. And this one guy grabs me by both shoulders. He's shaking me. He's like, oh my God, dude, I am so glad you got down here. I'm so glad you're down here with us. He said, man, not too many people that go up there make it down here. We are so glad you made it down here. Scene. That's the end of the division.
Wow. And that's the basement.
So I asked the Holy Spirit, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
Like, what was this?
Yeah.
What was that? And the Holy Spirit told me, he said, Tim, everybody thinks the goal is to get to the top. He said, but the goal is to get to the bottom. He said, I haven't called people to get to the 100th floor. I've called people down to the basement. He said, if Jesus Christ is the chief cornerstone, what floor would you want to live on? And I was like, I think I want to be right here. And then he said, get as many people to the basement as you can.
And that's the vision.
That's the vision he gave me. I was 30 years old when he gave me that vision.
Wow. When did you launch the basement?
2 years ago.
I was going to say, it's pretty recent.
Yeah. But it's been a philosophy since 30.
Been a philosophy.
So I'm a disciple maker.
Yeah.
Juliet and I are disciple makers. We homeschooled our kids because we just knew the public school system wasn't going to disciple them like we were.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like, we're scared of the world. We were just like, we're better disciple makers than any ISD in Texas.
Right.
We're disciple makers. So I've been telling this basement philosophy to every single person I've mentored and discipled for the last 19 years. And I've just drilled it into them. I had no idea that God wanted to scale that philosophy. I didn't know that.
And here you are.
And here we are.
Okay, well, let's start on the pod. I want to go in a lot of directions.
Yeah.
Because you've had such a multifaceted ministry career.
Yeah.
Musician, poet, rapper, comedian, pastor, podcaster, incomplete list, I'm sure.
Right. Dot. Yep.
But, we got a lot of young leaders listening.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, I want to get into a podcast. So what made you think podcast? Because the argument, like I started 10 years ago, just over 10 years ago. The argument even then was, oh gosh, the market's flooded. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like I thought I was
over
late
5
to
million.
The game.
Yeah.
5 million.
There's over 5 million podcasts.
I think there were 5 in 2014. That's why we got a toehold.
Yeah.
But what made you think that it wasn't oversaturated? Because yours has really taken off.
Because I got a word from God.
Well, there you go. There's a good answer.
Like
that's a good answer.
I promise you, I was minding my own business. September of 2021, our 6th anniversary, the month of our 6th anniversary, the Holy Spirit gave a prophetic.
This is church?
This is church. I'm a pastor. Our church anniversary.
So you're full-time pastor.
I'm a full-time pastor at the time, 6th anniversary. A prophetic word comes through one of our friends. And it's about, there's going to be a change in your leadership. There's about to be a change in the season ahead. And I'm thinking, you're absolutely right. Our church is bursting at the seams. We need a new building. I need to change the org chart. So there is, I'm a literal person. So I'm like, you're absolutely right. You're on. We don't have to stone you. Your word is, your prophetic word is actually going to come to pass. So 4 days later, the Lord goes, hey, go listen to that word again. I listened to the word again, Carey, and I thought my friend was overdubbed. I'm like, she didn't say this 4 days ago. There's no way. And all I heard the Lord saying was, your season as a lead pastor is coming to an end. So that was September of 21. March of 22, God shows me who my successor is.
Wow.
April, I have a conversation with him. May, the Lord says, I need you to do a podcast.
How do you discern that?
A friend of mine that I know and love, Byron Copeland, his son and his son's friend was doing a podcast, and they asked me to be on it.
Okay.
So I'm like, I'll do it for the young bucks. I'm an older head now. I'll be the guy to come in and hang out with the youngins, right? And so I sit down, I do the pod with him. It was cool. I get up and I hug everybody. I start walking out the door and the Holy Spirit says, I need you to do a podcast. My response was, I'd rather throw a penny in the ocean.
What was the hesitation?
I'm an introvert. Yeah. And why would anybody listen to my podcast? There's already 5 million of them. Go find something. Somebody else needs to do this. But I'm good. He's like, no, you need to do the podcast. So I said no 4 times. I had precedent for no 4 times because Moses said no 4 times.
Right.
I knew not to go 5. Right. I didn't have biblical precedent for 5 times. So I didn't go 5. But I just remember I said, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. And then he was like, it's the basement. Call it the basement. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know who was going. Oh, this is what he said. And this is the part that scared the hell out of me. He said, the same way you have discipled and mentored people privately, that's the way I need you to talk publicly.
Wow.
To which I responded, I'm going to get canceled.
Because it's too uncensored, unfiltered.
I said, you know how I talk privately. I've had to, I'm from LA.
Right.
My older brother founded a gang. I'm from the hood. If you want me to talk like that publicly, I'm gonna get canceled. And he's like, get canceled.
Wow.
Go ahead, get canceled. And in some ways I did, but it helped me to identify the audience I was called to.
Right.
And so that's what we've been doing the last 2 years.
So last 2 years, you thought of this. You made a couple of decisions early on.
Mm-hmm.
One was, we're only doing this in person.
Yes.
So when you and I met late last year,
yeah,
you're like, you're so kind. You're like, I love your show.
Yeah.
Really joy to meet you.
Yeah.
I need you to be on my podcast, but I only do it in person.
That's right.
So I was like, okay, next time I'm in Dallas, which is now.
Yep.
And I'm here.
Yep.
And I'm at your house.
Yes, sir.
Which is awesome.
Yes, sir.
Why that decision?
Proximity is very, very important.
Yeah.
It was so important to Jesus that he became human.
Right.
Emmanuel, God with us. I do not think he could be a good intercessor for us on the right hand of the Father unless he had spent time with us.
Right.
The other thing is, Carey, it's hard to hate up close.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so proximity does something to the nervous system, right? There's an attunement that takes place. And if one is curious enough, first of all, if you're curious, you can't be offended.
Right.
So because you can't hold both of those spaces at the same time.
I hadn't thought about that.
So curiosity kills offense. Yeah. And if you're curious enough about an individual, then you will create space so that they can be fully seen, fully heard, fully known, fully loved, even if they're not fully agreed with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think 4 out of 5 ain't bad. I think everybody is owed the first 4. Agreement is not obligatory.
Not a human right.
It's not a human right to be agreed with. But fully seen, fully heard, fully known, and fully loved, I believe this is the teachings of Jesus. And God is 4 out of 5 with us. He fully sees us, fully hears us, fully knows us, fully loves us. Probably don't agree with everything that we think or do.
Definitely. Definitely doesn't.
Right? So yeah, that's why proximity is so important.
Right. But it's really blown up. I mean, your podcast, you did video first.
Yeah,
right?
we started with video and audio at the same time. And gave people an opportunity.
Which is growing faster, the audio or the video?
Video.
Video is.
Yeah.
So your YouTube presence is probably the strongest.
Yeah, it is.
And that was a complete morph for you. So when did you step back? And we're going to go back to your lead pastor days and some of the other things you're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm always interested in rapid growth. That's just something that's always fascinated me. It's got ups, it's got downs. So how long did you hold the I'm leading a church and I'm also a podcaster intention? How long were those?
6 months.
Tracks? 6 months.
6 months because the first pod was July 6th of 2022. And I didn't even know, God hadn't even told me when to transition to church yet.
Right.
But we started the first pod release while I was on sabbatical. So every July I go on my break. And so I didn't, and my phone was a brick. So I didn't have any data, no metrics. I didn't know how the pod was doing. All I know is the most intense spiritual warfare that I've ever had happened while I was on that sabbatical.
Really?
Yeah.
What did that look like?
Deep insecurity, deep sense of fear, and a deep sense of self-consciousness. Now, I have struggles, Carey. Those 3 I just named you, those ain't it.
Wow.
So
that was new.
I was so pissed. I was so incensed. I was so disoriented. I'm like, what is happening? I've not, in all my years of ministry, I haven't felt this. I haven't felt this attacked and this bad. And I'm like, I'm in Turks and Caicos. I can see to the bottom of the ocean. This is why am I feeling this, right? It lasts for 3.5 weeks before it subsides. I'm praying. I'm praying in the spirit. I'm listening to worship music. I'm reading my Bible. It takes 3.5 weeks before it breaks.
Was it more a fear of leaving ministry or more a fear of going all in on podcasting?
It was the fear of the 5 episodes we taped.
Really?
It was like, you're about to get canceled. When you come back, you're not going to have a church. Nobody's going to like you. You said too much on the pod. You shouldn't have said it the way you said it. Like, it It was like somebody. It was like somebody had their hand on my throat.
Wow.
It's like I couldn't breathe.
Sounds like The Accuser.
It was right. So I get back first week of August. I get back. I get with my team. They're like, "Hey, welcome back from your sabbatical. How much data do you want?" I said, "I want all the data." And I said, "Numbers equal names, and names equal souls. So tell me everything." So Hector he keys in some things. He flips his laptop around. He goes, "We have 25,000 subscribers in 3.5 weeks. You're fully monetized. You already met the threshold. It's over 4,000 watched hours, and you're already being monetized." And
on YouTube.
I started weeping.
Wow.
So uncontrollably. The tears went through my beard and dripped into the omelet I was eating. It was this, and again, I'm a context guy. I need, Jesus is king, context is queen in my world, right? So I need context. As long as I have context, I'm good. Once I heard those numbers, it gave me context to the warfare. And after I finished crying, I was like, "Oh, buddy, it's a wrap. You are scared of this.
Wow.
You scared of this."
So, gosh, so many questions. When there's 5 million podcasts, you're saying, okay, I could get canceled for this. We're having authentic conversations.
Yeah.
We're doing it online the way I do it offline.
That's right.
From the hood.
Yeah.
So for those who haven't heard The Basement, what makes it different?
We lead with vulnerability. I create space for people to give the gift of their vulnerability. And I go first. I just did a 2-hour plus episode for your show. Yes, sir.
And I couldn't believe how the time flew.
Yes, sir.
It just disappeared.
Yeah.
I looked at my watch. It's been 2 hours. How did that happen?
Yeah.
And that is a gift. I told you have a gift.
Thank you.
Because the time flew. And normally I'm like, yeah, let's wrap this up.
Yeah.
Come on.
Like, don't ask another question. Wrap this up.
I was not born in the hood, as you may have noticed, Tim. I don't know whether you noticed that or not.
Yeah. But that's so good for cross-pollination.
Yeah.
That's what I love. Like, we don't have the beauty. Okay, so the Christian faith is the greatest fraternity and sorority in the entire world.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you can be born in Canada, right? With Dutch lineage.
Yes.
Right? With immigrant parents. And I can be born in the hood, right? On my mommy's side, I'm 3 generations removed from slavery.
Whoa.
3.
That's close. That's living memory.
Super close, right?
Yeah.
You're 2 generations away, removed from World War. From the Second World War, right?
I am. Yeah.
And we can be on this couch as brothers in Jesus Christ.
Here.
From what seems to be astronomical opposite ends of the spectrum, and we can be talking about leadership. We could be talking about Jesus. We could be talking about life. It's the greatest fraternity in the world. And so here's one of the things that I processed in the last 2 years. I can't believe I code switched so much.
Oh yeah, I've had some conversations. With Black friends about code switching.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I can't.
For those who don't know, what's the thumbnail definition of code switching?
Yeah. So the nutshell is that I show up and I assimilate to an environment that is comfortable for white people.
You censor yourself.
I censor myself.
You become someone you are not.
I become someone less. I don't want to say, because that would mean duplicity. Okay. I don't become somebody I'm not. I become someone less than who I fully am.
Fully are.
Because I want you to feel comfortable.
Got it.
And I can't believe I robbed all them people from having the opportunity to choose if they really wanted to like me.
Wow.
That's what's made the last 2 years so difficult. is I should have just been me this whole time.
So no more code switching.
I don't code switch.
Did you feel that pressure as a pastor?
No, I didn't.
Interesting.
No, because I pastored a multicultural church, and I didn't have to do it there. But when I was at Gateway, I sure did.
Yeah.
And when I was at Potter's House, I sure did. And now people would think, well, you were at Potter's House, it's a predominantly black church. You were code switching? I absolutely was.
How does that happen?
Because I wasn't as church as them.
Oh, okay.
I grew up in LA.
So you had to clean up a little.
Yeah, and then you learn the church jargon and the isms and the stuff. And yeah. So I really wasn't me until probably the 5th year of our church. I wasn't fully me into the 5th year.
And that was only leaving you 2 left while you led it.
That's right.
You led it for 7.
When I finally got to me, within 2 years, the Lord's like, wrap it up. And then he says, now sit on your couch and be the you that's been most effective with everyone you've discipled.
Interesting.
Yep.
Hey, I don't want to do any cultural appropriation here. But I wonder, and just riff with me on this one.
Yep.
Whether pastors feel something similar in that I can't be fully myself if I have a microphone on.
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah.
So let me add this caveat. And I think this is the reason why the Lord was masterful in like telling me leave the church before he told me do the podcast. Because I didn't leave the church for the podcast.
Right.
Right? Like
it was like your season's over.
Yeah.
By the way, do the podcast.
Yeah. And he told me that like 9 months later. Yeah. So it wasn't close to each other, right?
Yeah.
There's a time gap.
Yeah.
So but I think what was in his genius and his mastery for me, that's not for everybody, but for me, it was going to be too much of a tension to hold being as vulnerable as I am on this couch.
Yeah.
And then still getting up to preach. Because preaching is very much State of the Union to the body of Christ.
Yeah.
So you can't be yourself. Right? Like Obama's from the south side of Chicago. If anybody thinks that Obama doesn't say nigga, you are sadly mistaken. He is from the south side of Chicago. Okay? Michelle Obama is black. Okay? Go pull up Obama's last 8 playlists that he gave at the end of his presidency or whatever. Right. Kendrick Lamar is in that playlist.
Yeah.
If you don't think this is in his vernacular, you are sadly mistaken. But he could never talk like that as the president of these United States.
Right.
Because he wasn't the president of black people.
Yeah.
He was the president of these United States of America. Mm-hmm. All peoples had to be represented, right? And so to my fellow Americans.
Mm-hmm. Right. He's a version of himself.
He's a version of himself.
Yeah.
And in that space, you need to be.
Yeah.
Because of who you're representing. On my couch, you're not going to make me be no pastor. That ain't happening.
So this is great. I followed your rules for this interview, which is like, I normally send questions, do all this research.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, we don't do that on the basement. And I'm like, all right. And it worked spectacularly well. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to prepare for this one either. We're just going to talk.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to go in with like minimal baseline knowledge.
Yep.
So this has been a lot of fun so far.
Sweet.
I would love to know, because you and I were talking at length on your show about, why do we keep creating churches that eat up and spit out leaders?
Yeah.
And I talked with you about from the time I started, because I'd never wanted to be a pastor.
Yep.
It wasn't on my list. I was a Christian, grew up in church, never wanted to be a pastor. Mm-hmm. And, I started in a denominational context where people wore robes, where you were the reverend or the reverend doctor or the very reverend or whatever. And I'm like, whoa, just Carey.
Yep.
And I worked very hard to keep it flat.
Yep.
And
I did the same thing with our church.
You did the same thing with your
Nobody
church.
called us pastor.
Nobody called you pastor. And then
Tim and Juliet.
Cool.
Yeah.
So then, Tim, I switched to more evangelical world.
Yeah.
Where you do get called pastor, Pastor Carey. Now, I was mentored by Andy Stanley.
Yep.
He's like, just Andy.
Yep.
I'm like, I'm going to keep it just Carey.
Yeah, for sure.
And part of that was a signal to my church that I don't have special powers. And, one of the favorite things I hear about people trying not to be addicted to the praise of people, but I love it when I do an event like we did in Dallas, 3-day event, Art of Leadership Live.
Yep.
And people who meet me for the first time is like, oh, you're exactly the same off mic as you are on mic, right?
Yep.
There's no pretense.
Yep.
Heard you speak at a conference. It's exactly what you see is what you get.
That's right.
WYSIWYG, whatever the coders call it.
Yep.
And I wonder when that isn't the case, does that put pressure on you that can lead to collapse or to that disconnect or to inauthenticity? That doesn't necessarily mean you killed your marriage.
Right, for sure.
Doesn't necessarily mean, you're in some mental asylum.
Yeah, for
with a
sure.
breakdown.
Absolutely, yeah.
But like any kind of gap between your private walk and your private talk, that creates a cognitive dissonance.
Absolutely.
That's hard. I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, I am enamored and obsessed with congruity, with being congruent.
Yep.
Me too. Integrity means something to me. That's what my daddy taught me, right? And character means something to me. And to be congruent is essential, right?
Yeah.
Church, I'll say it a different way. Pastors and politicians are the only two vocations, callings, jobs, careers that are synonymous with morality.
I never thought of that.
No other, there are no other vocations. You can't name me another vocation. We'd be like, whoa, throw doctors in there too.
Yeah, no. If the doctor's doing something on the side, it's like, just make me better.
No, pastors and politicians.
Lawyers, nobody expects it.
Right? Right, exactly, right? So pastors and politicians, and pastors are above politicians.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when you have that conflation, now you become the symbol of morality. Where does your humanity have any expression if you are synonymous with morality? Therefore, if you think a thought, you already think, I'm not even worthy of this vocation.
Yeah.
Let alone articulate the thought. So let me tell you how this was playing out for me when I was a young adult pastor. So I became a young adult pastor when I was 30. I did it for 4 years. In 4 years, there were 3 young ladies that I was attracted to. In 4 years, okay? Attraction is not something you plan.
Right.
Attraction's not a sin. I didn't wake up in the morning going, can't wait to see somebody as gorgeous as Juliet today, right?
And you're married.
And I'm married, right? And so these were counseling sessions because I'm the young adult pastor, and you get a name and you meet with somebody. I have no clue who this person is. We had 750 young adults, so I don't know. So she comes into my office. She's gorgeous.
Yeah.
God bless her parents, right? Like this collaboration was awesome, And I notice in my body, this is an attraction.
Yeah.
Attraction's not a sin. From Genesis to Revelation, you won't find anything about attraction. Our reactions to our attraction can become a sin. I'm a professional. I have my meeting with her. She leaves. I call my admin in, and I said, hey, you need to sign this individual to another pastor for her next counseling session. I can't meet with her again. Pastor, is anything wrong? What happened? Nothing. I'm attracted to her.
And you were that honest.
Yeah. And I don't, it's malpractice to be looking forward to a counseling session with a congregant. Yeah. That's malpractice. And so I don't need to know anything else more about her.
Let's move on.
I've literally seen enough. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the first time I said it to my admin, they said, I've never heard a pastor ever say what you just said to me. I can't believe you even told me that. I'm like, well, what's the other option? To keep it to myself, play myself into thinking I can handle this?
I'll save her.
And then start being a little more flirtatious or dressing up a little nicer, or where does this lead? It can't lead to anything good. So we're just going to cut it off now. She's done nothing wrong.
No.
There's nothing
not her
wrong
fault.
with her.
Not her. She doesn't even know, probably.
And I'm not bringing it to her attention. It's not her issue. It's mine. I got to go deal with this. So I was practicing this level of vulnerability when I was 30.
How did you know that at 30?
Because I had messed up all my 20s.
Okay, well, that's good. That's honest. So in your 20s.
Yeah. So, quick recap. I was sexually abused when I was 8 years old by a teenage boy that lived across the street from me for a period of time. And obviously sexualized at a young age, traumatized, and could not tell my parents because I didn't want my life to blow up. My 8-year-old thought after the first time I was abused, Carey, was, I can't tell my dad because he'll kill him. My older brother will bury the body, and my mom will be brokenhearted, and we're going to wind up living with some of our relatives. And that's worse than the life we have now.
Wow.
Or it's going to be the foster system. So I made a decision at 8.
That's a lot for an 8-year-old.
I made a decision at 8 to I got to keep this. I can't let this out. So I took it on me. And there's nothing I wasn't prepared to hold that. And so 4 years go by, I'm exposed to pornography at 12. And it's my alcohol. It's my cocaine. It could have been anything. It happened to be porn. So porn and masturbation became how I coped with life, right? Yeah. Any type of stress, any type of trauma, flare up, anything. So my mom catches me at 19 watching porn. And that night, I confessed to her that, because I knew that porn was the fruit. It wasn't the root. So at 19, 8-year-old Timmy in my 19-year-old body gets to tell his mommy that he got hurt. And then we wake, and it's like 2:00 in the morning. We wake my younger brother up. He was abused by the same guy. My mom was abused when she was 6, harassed by her babysitter sexually. And then my father, he was working nights, but he came home. So probably 4:30 in the morning now. My father says that when he was 5, he was sexually abused by the owner of a comic book store. So in one night, Carey, what should have been shame and a lot of guilt and condemnation, and all the lights came on. And it was like a 2,000-pound slab of concrete came off my chest. And I could breathe again. I could take a deep breath. And I knew what I felt. I didn't know how to quantify it or categorize it. All I remember saying to myself, not out loud, was, I will never hold a secret again as long as I live. It was just like, somebody gonna know. I might not be able to tell the world, but I will never have a secret again as long as I live. I was 19. A year later, I gave my life to Jesus.
Man, so you weren't even a Christian?
I wasn't a believer. Wow. No, I gave my life to Jesus a year later, and I was essentially a born-again porn addict. That thing didn't come off me right away. My brain had been rewired.
Sure.
I had a whole bunch of stuff to start tackling through. I'm married within 2 years of that, so I bring a porn addiction into my marriage. And I'm trying to hide it because I want to spare her, but I'm not being vulnerable. Then she finds out, and I'm going through this dumb, toxic cycle. And then after my first 2 years of salvation, I realized altar calls weren't enough. So I just started to do my work. And it was a long, arduous road throughout my 20s into my 30s. But once I got into my 30s, I had figured out the only way that you're going to stay free is keep your mouth open. And you better have somebody you can tell everything to, because if you can't, whatever doesn't come up and out of your mouth through words are going to come up and out of your body through actions.
That'll preach. Yeah.
So if you don't verbally telling yourself, your body's going to, in action, telling yourself.
Wow. When you think about what you're doing on The Basement, and you have some long episodes. I think longest record is 4.
4 hours, 6 minutes.
You're out Roganing Rogan. Okay. So good for you. Good for you. You're out Roganing Rogan.
It's the only way I'm beating them.
Yeah, aren't we all in that place?
Yeah.
But when you think about the level of authenticity that you've got on the podcast versus the authenticity you felt or gave yourself permission to have when you were pastoring, talk about the size of the gap. Big enough?
that much.
Meaningful.
Yeah, meaningful enough that, hey, there's a wide range of people in here.
Yeah.
I got saved on the back row of my parents' church that was in the banquet room of a bowling alley. It's 47 people in attendance that day. I'm sure of it, right?
Yeah.
And so I still preach from the back row forward. The first 4 or 5 rows are already saved. You know what I mean? Hey, gang, I'm in my series. Open up your Bibles to the book of Exodus, chapter number 3. Oh, first 5 rows. He's in Moses. He's talking about Moses burning bush. Let's see if he knows what he's talking about. First 5 rows already know your message, right?
They know. They know. Wonder what angle you're going to take.
Yeah. They're there for quality assurance. Let's just make sure this guy's theologically correct, right? The guy or the girl on the back row, Carey, they're on Instagram. They don't care what's going on here. They're waiting for it to be over.
Yeah.
I want their attention. Y'all are already saved. So that's always been my mentality. Is first 5 rows are already saved. I'm going for the person in the back, and I'm working my way forward, right? Throughout the message, I'll prove to the people by the time I'm done that I was in this book, and I'm hermeneutically correct and homiletically correct and all that kind of stuff, right? But I'm starting from the back row, and I'm working my way forward. But I was just diplomatic enough in an embassy as an ambassador that I was given a State of the Union to the body of Christ. And I wanted to make sure that citizens of our country felt like they heard a message that was from the kingdom of God,
right.
That visitors to our country knew that they were welcome here, and that those seeking asylum knew that they could stay here if they wanted to. Because I believe every church is an embassy.
It is interesting, because when I'm running this through my filter, and I've had this conversation with myself more than once, but I don't think we've had it here. I feel like permission to talk about things, even on a leadership podcast, you're just like, life, let's just talk. Whatever's there.
Yeah.
But even on a leadership podcast, because I tend to run everything through the lens of leadership, because I want to help leaders.
Right.
I feel a much greater sense of permission in what I can say and how I can say it.
Yep.
Than I do or did as a preacher. And
Absolutely.
I feel more freedom. I've never thought about this. Now I'm taking this further.
Yeah.
I feel more freedom in my keynotes. Like when I'm talking to leaders at a conference, church leaders or business leaders.
Facts.
I feel more freedom in my keynotes than I do in my preaching, which is maybe why I'm not preaching right now. I don't know. That's really, welcome to therapy.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's good.
Well, here's the thing. The sermon, I believe in the sacred desk.
Yeah, you're representing.
It's
the word of God, not the word of Carey.
Right. You know what I mean?
If this show dies, that's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world.
Fine.
Right.
The gospel's going to go on. If the gospel gets in trouble, I think that's pretty serious.
Yeah. So the gospel, there is a compelling way. The gospel message is a one size fits all.
Right.
My story is not one size fits all. Your story is not one size fits all. The gospel is. So in preaching the gospel, there is an approach and a respect and a reverence I have to that, right? But when we come home and we plop down on the couch, I don't talk with the same structure and the same cadence that I do in a sermon.
Right.
We're sermonizing. Even the most laid back of us, right? That don't even want to call what we do preaching and teaching, right? Like, hey, my talk today.
Yeah.
You're still structuring it. You're not at the house going, hey, here's point 1, honey, to my day. Point 1, I got fed. Point 2, I overcame fear. Point 3, I'm going far. You're not alliterating with your wife in pillow talk.
It's not structured.
Right? It's not structured. Yeah. So the Lord was very, very clear to me that, hey, the way you've always talked in private, that's the way I want you to talk in public. And that's the cadence that the
podcast is the forum for that.
It is the forum for that. It is the forum for that.
Now, when I asked you about your audience before we hit record for your show, you told me you had a lot of people who've deconstructed, maybe a few deconverted, de-churched, but also church people, and you see it as discipleship.
Absolutely,
right?
it is,
I'm thinking about this from the perspective of a podcast that might be able to disciple people that have given up on church.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think about your show through that lens?
Oh, that's exactly what we do.
That's what you do.
Yeah, that's
All
exactly
right.
what
so
we
let's
do.
talk about that.
So one of the things I became aware of probably month 6 or 7 of the pod, I thought to myself, or the Holy Spirit brought the thought, because I'm not that smart. So I just this thought came to me, and I said, I think we're a safety net for deconstructionists.
Okay.
That way they don't just fall off the building and crack into a million pieces. We're their safety net.
Because you're so authentic. I remember the first time, I think it was Brad Lomenick I was telling you, who told me about you and your show, and he's like, this guy's blowing up. You got to go look at the basement, listen to the basement. So I listened, I didn't view.
Yeah.
I was washing my car, and my first impression is, oh, Tim's deconstructed. Now, I'm not saying that as an insult, but it was so raw and so honest that I thought, oh, I wonder if this is the guy who's walking away. And then I listened longer and to more episodes, and I'm like, oh no, he's not doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
He's as orthodox as anybody.
I appreciate you listening longer.
Yeah.
Because most people just take a 90-second clip and they're like, he hates the local church and he's a deconstructionist. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, and that would have got me a lot of views and a lot of headlines on a 5-minute sample.
Right, exactly.
No, but you go deep and you're so authentic and you're so vulnerable, and it sounds like the things deconstructionists say. Yeah, but it's in the view of Reconstruction. I'm thinking about that, like for pastors. You know, not that you need more work, but why can't your church have a ministry like that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or why can't your preaching feel more like that?
I think it's important because after I kind of like really heard from deconstructionists, I thought to myself, oh, this ain't all bad. No. Deconstruction is actually very, very important. I'm not for destruction. My thing is like, okay, deconstruct if you will, but you better also be going to Lowe's and Home Depot for reconstruction. Yeah. Because destruction without reconstruction is destruction.
Yes, it is.
And I am not for the destruction of the church. I am for, you know what? We never needed this wing. This ring of religiosity and self-righteousness, let's tear that down. Deconstruct that, right? But let's build something better. So if you just let people talk, they'll let you know where they are. But if you interrupt them, again, there's curiosity. I know the second thing isn't a word, but it rhymes. There's curiosity and there's furiosity. When you get triggered, you have 2 options. One is curiosity. When I get triggered, I become curious at why I allowed what that did externally, why it vibrated something internally within me.
Sure.
What reverberated in me as a result. And I become curious. I go inward to go find out what about this bothers me so much. Because it had nothing to do with you. I can't change you. I can't stop you. So what is it about you that causes this? Curiosity leads you inward. Furiosity leads you outward. So I'm triggered. You're the one that triggered me. So the most because I'm too afraid to go inward, I just cancel you. Right. The most convenient thing that I can have happen is you stop talking.
Your questions threaten me.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So my questions threaten people. My cadence threatens people. My conversations threatens people. My language threatens people. My liberty to not code switch anymore threatens people. It makes them uncomfortable. But instead of getting curious, they get furious.
I don't notice a big difference in you, and this could just be me.
Yeah.
In the way you're talking and showing up on my show than you did on your show. Have you stopped code switching now when you're a guest elsewhere?
Not at all.
Okay.
Like I'm not holding back in
You're
any
not holding
way.
back.
Yeah.
Right. Awesome.
I'm a very passionate person. I'm an empath, as you know. And so if we get on certain topics that I'm really, really passionate about, or we talk about certain things, I feel liberty to express myself emotionally as I'm feeling it in the moment based on the context of the conversation that we're having.
Right. So that's less and less of an issue for you all the time.
Yeah. And
Cool.
I'm never trying to force that, or like, I never feel like I got to prove I'm not a code switcher and so I got to say some stuff. No, if it comes, it comes. But it's not like I'm on a crusade to, I don't know, piss people off. It's just not, it never comes to my mind. I'm really not trying to, I'm not thinking about nobody except the person I'm talking to.
So this is interesting too. You know, you think about the growth of your podcast, The Basement. And I was listening to Carl Lentz and Laura Lentz on Lights On. And I hear about this B-side. And then literally a month before I flew here, I'm like, wait, I think that's Tim's company.
It is.
It is the B-side.
Yeah.
So you're like building stuff out and connecting with creators.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the development of the B-side, what it is. Is it a podcast network? Is it an app? Like it is.
Yeah.
But,
it's all of that.
Say more.
Yeah. So I'm driving to Tulsa, Oklahoma one day.
Yeah.
And it's a 4-hour drive.
Going to see Mike or Carl?
Yeah. Going to see Mike.
Mike Todd.
And so I'm driving up there, and because I'm an introvert, a 4-hour drive is heavenly.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, I'm by myself. I'm driving. I have a Tesla. So the Tesla's driving. I'm not even driving. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there hands-free, and out of nowhere, unsolicited, no prior thought, the Holy Spirit's like, I need you to develop an app. And I was like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
You cannot be talking to me. He's like, no, I need you to develop an app. And I'm like, about what? Like, and he goes, go look at the Daily Wire. And I was like, okay. So I pull up the Daily Wire while I'm driving, right? And the car's like, pay attention. I'm like, I am, kind of. Right? I pull up Daily Wire, and I just scroll through it. And it wasn't like I started listening to any content. I just started scrolling through it. And he was like, I need you to gather voices of vulnerability in the same way Daily Wire has gathered voices that feel inclined to, I don't know what Daily Wire does.
I don't know. I've read a few articles.
Yeah. But you know,
but the point
Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens was there at the time. She's no longer there, and some other guys. Who else? Matt Walsh, all these people, right? And so he goes, I need you to, that's what I want you to do.
Right.
And just go get voices that have the same thinking wavelength as you around vulnerability. And I was like, okay. So I came back and talked to a friend of mine who was sponsoring my podcast at the time. And he goes, hey man, I've been praying, and man, I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like I need to be doing something with you, but like maybe more like the Daily Wire. And I was like, I need you need to shut up.
Like the odds of all, and it's not even a major outlet, the Daily Wire, for that to come up. Come on.
I said, sir, what made you say that? And then he goes, I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm just thinking like something needs to happen. And Carey, I go to open my mouth to respond to him, and this is no lie. Right hand to the Lord. Both hands. Both feet. I opened my mouth, and everything that came out of my mouth that he heard was the first time I heard it. I was like, oh yeah, here's how the company's going to be structured. We're going to do this, this, and this, and we're going to structure it like this, and we're going to get subscribers to come over here, and I'm going to move everything from YouTube over to this platform. That way we don't have to fight with YouTube's algorithm and them demonetizing or downright shutting down monetization to some of our apps. Because I said the word transgender on one of our episodes. I just said the word. I wasn't talking about a person or an issue or whatever. I was just talking about whatever I was talking about, and I said the word transgender as part of what I was talking about, and we got demonetized.
Interesting.
I'm like, there's whole YouTube channels for transgender.
Yeah.
How do you even distinguish? How does your algorithm know I love Jesus?
Did you try to appeal it? We had that very similarly.
Yeah.
Where we were getting ready and I got a call. I was on vacation.
Yeah.
Taking a month off.
Yeah.
And rarely get a phone call.
Yeah.
And it was my digital media director. And it was an old interview that the algorithm found that we don't even know what it was because it was pretty, I'm not going to say who it was because it wasn't the guest's fault.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was just some word that got flagged by an algorithm. And I'm like, it was like, hey, there's, I forget what their term was, but intolerant or whatever. I'm like, no. This was about tolerance.
Right.
This was,
right.
we were doing the opposite of what you said we were doing.
Right.
And the purpose was the opposite. You need to listen to this. And so we went to town on that.
Yeah.
And it was like, So that warning stayed up for 90 days.
Yeah.
I think it's gone now.
Yeah,
but I'm
for
like,
sure.
That's crazy.
It's crazy
because
man.
there are channels that are devoted to division.
Absolutely. And they
I'm
never get flagged.
They never get flagged.
And they get to run up the score. They got more subs than both of us combined.
Exactly. And I'm like, guys, we're the opposite of what you said you were, and there's no appeal process.
Exactly.
There's just some algorithm.
Exactly.
And so I hear that.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to insulate ourselves from being penalized.
Absolutely. And we'll put it behind our own paywall.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll be subscription based for people to support our channel. They were supporting us on YouTube anyway. And so we have as of yesterday 57,000 downloads of this app.
Wow.
With around 8,100 subscribers.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it's about a 14% something, 4.7% conversion rate or something like this. But our app is not a entertainment app. It's not YouVersion. It's people. So how do you have 57,000 downloads and only 8,000 subscribers? Because for a person to start subscribing means that they're ready to do their work.
Yeah. And you got to be like in-app purchase, right? Like ding.
You got to go in there.
Happens.
Yeah, you got to go.
Yeah.
You got to go in there, and it's $10 a month or $120 a year.
That's not a lot.
It's not a lot, but you know, the people that have subscribed, they're working on themselves from the inside.
Yeah.
Like, bro, we got. Listen. When the Lord tells me to do something, Carey, I'm the type of person that I just do it.
Right.
I don't, because obedience is better than sacrifice. I don't need the confirmations, but when they come, they're just sweet kisses from the Lord.
Yeah, I'm not saying no.
Yeah, I'm not saying
if
no.
someone's
right?
saying good job, I'm not like get away from me.
So 2003, here's my big hug from the Lord in terms of like the effectiveness of what we do. In the midst of all the controversy and oh my God, whatever people think and say. So I'm at a church. I won't name the church. I'm at a church. I'm doing a Q&A. Q&A's awesome. And when we get done, they have like a little meet and greet for me. So people are coming through the meet and greet line. And there's this young lady there that's waiting to talk to me. Beautiful, no makeup, pretty face. And she's like, hey, thank you so much for your pod. You have no idea how much it's helped me. I'm like, okay, thank you. I appreciate you. Then she says, real quick, I need you to say hi to somebody for me. So she picks up her phone. She hits FaceTime and hands me the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as the person answers, they see my face. And they're like, oh my God. She has on nursing scrubs.
No
and
way.
she's like, oh my God, thank you so much. She starts crying. Thank you so much. You have no idea. Your content has just blessed us. It's been so amazing. I'm like, thank you. And I love you. And so I hang up the phone, give it back to her. She goes, thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying hi to her. That's my wife. I said, oh, okay. And she goes, and we're getting a divorce.
Whoa.
And she said, it's because of your podcast. She starts naming the episodes. She was like, episode, let's just say 22. The Holy Spirit started convicting me as I was listening to you about my same-sex marriage to my wife. And then episode 37, none of those episodes were talking about homosexuality, gay marriage, or anything.
It's like the sermon. It's like when you said, and I'm like, I never said that.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then she's just like, then I brought my wife in, and we started sitting on the edge of the bed, listening to more of the content. And then the Holy Spirit started convicting us. And then we realized that our marriage didn't please God. And we're uncoupling, and we still love each other, but we want to honor God. And so thank you for teaching what you teach and talking the way you talk, because it really resonates with us.
Wow.
And we get stuff like that all the time. But our platform is also safe enough that we could be in a live chat, and somebody, this happened a few months ago. I just love the safety that we've curated. We're in a live chat, and somebody writes, hey, I really need prayer because I'm believing God for a spouse, but I don't think anybody wants to marry me because I have herpes.
That's honest.
Within 90 seconds, no lie, right? Within 90 seconds, there's 9 other people rallying around in the live chat. Girl, I got herpes too.
Whoa.
I'm in the same boat as you. And now there's like a community of like, because here's the thing. All of humanity walks in your church.
Mm-hmm.
And this presumption that by being in this church, you must have walked out of another church.
Yeah.
Right. Like you came out of a pew into a pew, as opposed to you came out of life. Like you were all representing life in this room. And if there's no place to process that safely without, right? There was a guy that went viral the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Not the other day, a few months ago. This guy went viral because some guy in his church didn't say amen. They said like, F yeah.
Oh.
And I don't know if you saw it.
I think I did.
And the guy was like, hey, bro, amen. And also stop cussing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and but the way he handled it, are we gonna act like we ain't ever heard that word before?
Right.
Are we gonna act like some of us don't use that word? Because all of us ain't got the same convictions. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's if humanity, if we as believers of Jesus can't be as real as the book we're reading. Like, the Bible has no chill.
Oh, yeah.
Expressing the humanity of all these men and women from Genesis to Revelation, which covers about 4,000 years of humanity. It's pretty rough. If you read it straight through, it's pretty rough. If you play Duck, Duck, Goose, it'll read like lilies and wildflowers, right? And then you're just skipping through dandelions. And the worst thing that happened is Jesus bled. But if you read it from Genesis to Revelation,
it can be a tough book.
Child, who you telling? Right? Like that thing is rough. But God is working through all of that to get us to Jesus.
Yep. Yeah, and there is something about, you've got the B-side community, which is not just, Get Lecrae's podcast or Carl Lentz or whatever.
Yeah.
But you also or yours, you also have a community.
That's right.
So we have the Art of Leadership Academy.
Yes, sir.
And there's something, ours isn't quite as cheap as yours is and expensive as yours is.
Yeah.
But there's something about what I think of as a qualified buyer, somebody who's got a little bit of skin in the game.
That's right.
Changes the conversation 100%.
That's right.
Because free is free to take cheap shots. Free. That would be like me, 5 minutes into the podcast going, pretty sure Tim's deconverted. Right.
Exactly.
I'm gonna
He's a heathen.
Stop the presses. Stop the presses.
Right.
That's my next blog article.
That's right.
my next rant on my podcast.
Right.
Totally wrong.
Yeah.
Totally misinformed.
Yep.
No relationship. Never talked to you.
Yep.
But I'm making, headlines now because of something that's inaccurate.
Yep.
And that is what, sadly, social media and the internet have become.
Yeah.
It has become that.
Yep.
And anybody's in on the conversation. So it has a role.
Yeah.
But it's not the role. And what's interesting is I was nervous about creating a discussion feed. It was a last minute ad when we created the Academy back in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're going to put all my courses in there, which are there. We're going to do monthly coaching. We're going to do a live coaching call. We're going to do staff training. We did all that stuff. And then not quite as an afterthought, but at the 11th hour, it's like, what if we created a discussion feed where leaders could just connect with each other, And I was like, yeah, let's do that. And so we did it. And I created community guidelines. Like, all right, we're not going to have trolls here. We're not going to beat each other up. Yeah, you're a Baptist and this person's a Pentecostal and this person's Episcopalian and this person's non-denom.
Yeah. Play
We're
nice.
all going to get along. Play nice, play nice. It was real simple. It was simpler than that. But it was just like a reminder to be civil.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people we've had to talk to in over 2 years about inappropriately handling their sister or brother in the app? 0.
That's right.
0.
Because they're bought in.
Yeah, every day. Even on Instagram. Instagram can get nasty now too. It wasn't for a long time.
They are.
It was Facebook and X, right?
Yeah.
But like, there has to be a role, but there has to be a place where people feel safe.
That's right.
Or you look like a program like Alpha.
That's right.
A ministry like Alpha, where people can come in and on day one go, yeah, I have herpes.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
And we need more safe spaces like that in the church.
Yeah.
We do.
There was, I was talking with a friend of mine who's brilliant. She's a doctorate, has an earned doctorate in just one of the most brilliant minds I've been around.
Thank you for saying earned doctorate.
Yeah.
Call me Dr. Nieuwhof.
Yeah.
Plotted online. Yeah. Earned doctorate,
right? And so she goes, I'm starting to research the city of refuge, in the Old Testament. And I was like, yeah, there's 6 of them, because I'm a nerd. I was like, there's 6 of them. There's 12 tribes of Israel. There's 6, and they're all scattered around. And if somebody accidentally killed somebody, before they could be murdered, they could go to a city of refuge and wait until a trial and not, be killed.
Right.
And I feel like the basement is a city of refuge. Like people
That's
need
a great metaphor.
And so one of our roles, one of the roles I know we serve, Carey, is that we are an incubator between someone's deconstruction and reentry into the local church.
Right.
Because I never tell them to stay with us. They all know they need to go be a part of a local church at some point. But if they need a place to like, all right, I need to get some of this off me. I need to detox some of this. Or I learned a whole bunch of bad stuff. I'm a legalist, right? Yeah. I'm a real religious person. I'm super judgmental. Tim, I actually hated you. I used to listen to this other person. He downed you so bad. I decided to listen to some of your content and then fell in love with you. And now I'm a dweller. It's like, thanks. Now I'm ready to be a part of a local church. What kind of church should I be looking for?
Right. And we need more churches that can handle real talk.
That's right.
Here's a confession.
Right. Okay.
I led a church for 20 years, stayed on as a teaching pastor, still part of that church. This is embarrassing. For the very first time, today years old, I thought, I bet you somebody in our church has a sexually transmitted disease. It never even occurred to me, man. I didn't have a category for that. I had like soap on my brain.
Yeah.
Of course that doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
Of course it does.
We literally think that everybody's a virgin. So they got married and doesn't have a pass. And so, you know what I mean? And we make all these rules for the genders, right? We want appropriateness and we don't want good to be evil spoken of, because you know what happens if a penis gets next to a vagina. You're probably going to have sex. And then it's like, so there's nobody here that has the same sex attraction?
Right.
Now that you've split brothers and sisters, you don't think brothers and brothers can get together or sisters and sisters can get together? It's like it's 2024, people. Culture's telling, if any of this culture gets redeemed and comes to your church, they're coming in with the stuff that you were railing against out there.
Yep. Yeah, and that's so important, if you're fighting a culture war.
Yes.
Right? And you're like, these people and these people and these people and blah, blah, blah. And then they come in and it's like, well, I guess I'm on the wrong side. I'm
exactly.
done. And the vulnerability it takes to raise your hand and say, I'm attracted to that woman I was counseling. We're going to cancel this. Or, I have a sexually transmitted disease.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Absolutely.
To raise your hand like that takes incredible vulnerability.
It does.
Then to create a non-judgmental community where there's empathy. And maybe, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
But we're really glad you're here.
Yeah.
Like, we need more church like that.
We do.
Yeah.
Our dwellers, as we affectionately refer to ourselves, our dwellers, we had a guy in the live chat on Monday who was he was like a little troll. And then like 10 of the dwellers are like, hey, we love you, bud. And we heard you and you're fine. But
That's a good answer.
We're not listening. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you don't like Tim, that's fine. You don't actually have to be here, but you can stay, but we love you. But also, like it's the emotional IQ on these people is high.
Exactly. Because they have skin in the game.
They have skin in the game.
They have skin in the game.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Comedy.
Yes, sir.
Have you always done comedy?
Always.
Always.
So
you're getting back into it.
I had comedy before I had Jesus.
And as a teenager.
As an adolescent. So after my trauma, which was so dark and so disorienting, right?
Yeah.
I just knew, and obviously I'm putting language to it now that I didn't have as a kid.
Sure.
So this was intrinsic as a little boy. But I was just like, man, what is happened? Because it happened more than once, you know. But I'm in this kind of, I'm just like, this is so nasty, and I don't know how to feel about it, and it's wrong, and I can't talk about it. But I also don't want to be depressed and sad, and so I'm gonna laugh, and I'm gonna make others laugh. And I did.
Yeah.
And I've always been able to do. So when I gave my life to Jesus, my early 20s were spent preaching, rapping, and doing stand-up comedy. To the point that there would be a couple of churches a year that would have me come, they would have me for the whole weekend, literally. On Friday, I do rap for the young adults. On Saturday, I do comedy for the single ministry. And on Sunday, I'd preach to the congregation. And God made it very, very clear that preaching is what he wanted me to focus on. Because humor has always been a part of my messaging, I never felt disconnected from comedy.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that he would bring it back to me and allow me to do it again. And so I'm in a season now where I get to do comedy and stand at the intersection of faith and culture and allow people that are really far from Jesus to understand my faith, and then to allow people that are really close to Jesus to understand the world that we're supposed to reach, and to cross-pollinate it and bring levity to both through the art of comedy.
So let's talk about the art of comedy. I'm fascinated by this.
Okay.
So people ask me, like, what do you do these days? And sometimes if we've got longer dialogue, I'll say, I notice things. I notice church trends. I notice, this thing about the church. Like, what if we took a look at that? Like, I notice thing. And I've heard comedy defined as noticing.
It is.
It is.
It is. I'll tell you how fresh this is.
Yeah.
This is yesterday. Okay. I got a note from I have EMDR sessions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Probably once a month.
Cool.
Sometimes once a week, depending on what I'm doing. And my therapist says, I'm processing comedy and the fact that I have it back now and the way I want to utilize it, and the noticing and all that. And she goes, reducto absurdum. I said, ma'am, that's clearly Latin, but I don't know what that means. She goes, reducto absurdum is the art of reducing it to the absurd.
Yeah.
I am directly confronting someone in an abstract and outlandish way, so much so that the person being confronted laughs and subsequently applies what has been said to their lives. She said, Tim, you do that unconsciously. You are reducto absurdum. You know how to bring things to people's attention in such a way that you can get them. Case in point, I was talking to a friend who loves Jesus, is a disciple of Jesus, is engaged, and does not feel any conviction around sex before marriage.
Sure.
And so they're like, and I don't really think fornication has anything to do with just sex before marriage. I think it has to do with something deeper than that and some old nuanced stuff. And I'm listening to her and I'm like, and so she's like, so what are your thoughts? But kind of like, I don't care what your thoughts are. Like I invite your thoughts, but I've already made up my mind. I'm not
listening. Yeah.
And so we were actually sharing a meal. It was 3 of us at a table and we were sharing a meal. And as soon as she finished, I said, well, if you just want to have dessert before your main course, then just say that. I said, the way I read scripture, sex is supposed to be the crescendo of a betrothal process. And you should have gotten to know this person you were going to marry on every other level prior to your bodies coming together. So that it really is a crescendo. Yeah. It really is a climax of knowing. You get the ultimate knowledge on your wedding day. I said, but if you want to have your chocolate cake before you have your steak, go ahead and eat it. And she literally goes, okay, thank you. For the record, I do not like having my dessert before I have my main course. And which your argument is duly noted.
Not bad.
And now she's not going to have sex again until she gets married.
Wow.
Like everything don't have to be rocket science. But it also, there is a theology there. There is a way I see scripture that is orthodox and that is like, it says what it says. And I'm kind of a literalist. And so it is what it is. But the way to explain it might be different depending on who you're talking to. And so,
talking about the way we preached 30 years ago versus now, there's more pressure. And a lot of communicators, whether you're a keynote speaker or a boss in a meeting or whether you're preaching on a Sunday morning, you feel the pressure to make the audience laugh. I'm not good at stage jokes. It was funny. Wasn't unscripted for the last 3 days at our Art of Leadership Live in Dallas. But like I just had what was on the slides, and the slides were my typical bullet points. But some of the moments were really funny. But it was like in the moment where I just kind of like boom, boom, boom. And I couldn't repeat it right now if I wanted to. A couple times I tripped up on my words or whatever. So the craft of comedy amazes me. John Acuff is a good friend. He's been on the show. I've had Andrew Stanley, had John Christ, and other comedians.
Smart people.
Always would love to have Nate Bargatze at some point. Brilliant at comedy. To you, what's the key to comedy? Like when you're writing a set, when you're writing a bit, how do you know, oh, this is going to work? This is, or has a shot at it?
Identification.
Okay.
Can the audience identify with me? They don't have to be able to have experienced what I experienced. Can they identify with it? If they can identify with it, then I automatically have something. Right? And so then it's just about how am I going to tell the story in a way? Because my GOAT is Bill Cosby. Present circumstances excluded. Bill Cosby's my 1A. Chappelle's my 1B. Pryor is number 2. And then 3 through 100, I don't care. But they're all 3 aforementioned are storytellers. And I'm a storyteller. And so everyone can find themselves in a story. Everyone wants to find themselves in a story, which is why Hollywood is still making movies. Because I can identify with the hero, the anti-hero, the villain, the protagonist, the victim, the damsel in distress, the Prince Charming. We all want to identify. And so I look for identification.
And then when you're putting a set together, you're hoping you have some kind of identification, a bridge to the audience. How do you build a joke?
So for me, again, I don't do premise punchline. I don't do premise setup punchline because I'm not a joke teller. I'm a storyteller. So stories are a little bit different where you are bringing up a premise, but then there's a patience in a story that differs from a joke. The masters can make you laugh every 8 to 12 seconds. That's a masterful joke teller. With a storyteller, there's more patience. So I'll take a chuckle. And hold you in the story for what I hope to be is the big payoff, which is a big laugh. So the storytellers are kind of uniquely different in that I don't need every 8 to 12 seconds.
Right. Like a bad sitcom from the 90s.
Yeah, exactly, right? That laugh track, which is so terrible.
Yeah.
With a story, it might be like, yeah, no, you're right. Identification. And then the payoff is the resolution of this is the laughter that I wanted to get. Case in point, I'll give you one. So we went to Grape Fest, which is a festival of grapes. Sorry. So
hence the name.
Hence the name. But there, I realized, I became acutely aware of the fact that, man, corn dogs live here. Like I started thinking, like, where else are corn dogs this prevalent?
Right.
In the rest of my life, on anybody's menu, McDonald's, Burger King, Sonic, like, you know what I mean? Corn dogs are like, they make cameo appearances on some people's menus, but they live at the county fair, right? They live at a festival. And so then I began to wonder, who created it? Like, who created corn dogs? Here's what I found out. I'm a nerd. 2 German immigrants got to Texas with their sausage, right? And they had a hard time slanging their sausage. I know there's innuendo in there, but just let it go. They had a hard time trying to slang their sausage. And they were like, what if we put it on a stick? Now, I'm going to read you. So they filed for a patent in 1927. They filed for a patent in 1927. It got approved in 1929. This is what it said. I'll spare you the German accent that I use when I actually do the bit.
Well, you do what you want to do.
I have discovered that articles of food such, for instance, as Venus, boiled ham, hard-boiled eggs, cheese, sliced peaches, pineapples, bananas, and the like, fruit, cherries, dates, figs, strawberries, when impaled on sticks and dipped in batter, which includes in its ingredients a self-rising flour, and then deep fried in a vegetable oil in a temperature of about 390 degrees Fahrenheit. I have to say it like that.
Yeah, you do.
That a threatened food product on a stick for a handle is a clean, wholesome, and tasty refreshment. That's the literal patent, a portion of the patent that was filed.
Wow.
Okay. It gets approved. So now I want one. I want this corn dog. I have an inner fat kid named Buddy, and if he had his way, he would kill me. And so, but I don't eat pork. I'm not a Muslim, and I don't eat chicken. Take a picture. So I asked him, is your corn dog 100% beef? The lady goes, Frank, huh? You never see Frank, you just hear him. Huh? Is the corn dog 100% beef? He goes, it's both. I'm not making none of this up. She heard him, but she doesn't question him. I'm still engaged in eye contact. I said, how is it both? And she goes, how is it both? And he goes, it's beef and pork. I just walked away. I was like, Frank, he's not paying attention.
No.
I get to the next spot. Is your corn dog 100% beef? They said it's 90% beef. It's 2% pork and chicken. I said, how did y'all get this close? How could you get this close and give up? Like, why wouldn't you just see it all the way through? Why would you get to... And so,
you're making me cough.
Right,
this
right.
Is good.
All right. So then the next thought I have is somebody might be thinking, Tim, you're being unreasonable. It's 98% beef. Maybe the casing is pork, and just eat the doggone corn dog, bro. That's what you wanted. And it's deep fried in batter. It's probably burned off all your pork tendencies, your pork phobia. But then I just thought, would that work with anything else? If you went to a fine restaurant and you wanted 6 ounces of Wagyu beef and they said, Mr. Nieuwhof, we have the finest Wagyu beef for you tonight. It's 98% Wagyu, 2% rat. Are you going to eat it?
Yeah.
If your best friend says, Carey, 98% of me is ride or die for you, but 2% wants to stab you in the back. Is this your best friend? If Tony says to you, I'm 98% faithful,
right,
but 2% of me wants to poison your food, are you eating breakfast in the morning? So my whole thing is that 2% is a lot.
Yeah.
Depending on the context.
What a beautiful, beautiful segue. And anybody can do that.
Yeah.
Anybody can do that, which is really brilliant. Yeah, my wife uses like organic shampoo and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And it's like 97% clean ingredients. I'm like, what's the rest? Motor oil?
Exactly.
Like, I want to know the 3%. I want to figure that out.
Will that kill me?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I'm going to do my $3 body wash stuff. It's good enough because it's probably the same thing at half the price.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It'll work.
So that's the difference with a story than a joke.
Yeah.
A joke I would have had to get to.
You would have had 10 of them.
I would have had to have gotten to the funny way faster than that.
Yeah.
Whereas with the story, I can do a crappy German accent. I can act out, hey, Frank.
Everyone knows that person.
You know what I'm saying?
I do.
Identification. Yeah. That's what you're going with.
Right.
Identification. And this was the genius of Cosby for me. Cosby never reminded you he was black.
That's true.
Pryor did. Pryor reminded you every 3 minutes. Cosby never did. He was like, if you didn't notice that, then I don't have time to bring it to your attention. But then he was like, my dad and my mom, and white people and Hispanic people and Italians and black people, and everybody is going, my dad and my mom too. They identified with him.
Right. So 7 years as a pastor.
Yep.
Now you're doing your own thing for the last couple of years.
Yep.
Would love to know what were, if any, some of the things about pastoring a church that you loved, and you can think about your time as an associate on staff or lead.
Yeah.
Things you loved that you miss.
I miss hugging people. I miss hugging people. I actually miss the week in and week out rhythm of like walking them through a series.
Yeah.
Like I loved taking people from here to there. 5 weeks, 7 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever. I did one of my favorite series that I ever did was called Upset the Vows. It was a 9-week series on marriage.
Whoa.
Nothing for singles. I was like, hey, singles, you can listen, but I ain't even talking to you. 9 weeks on marriage, one of my favorite series that the Lord gave me kind of a download to do. So I miss taking people from here to there, and I miss hugging them.
That's good.
Yeah.
What do you not miss?
I don't miss meetings.
But you run a company now. You got a B-side app. How do you handle that?
I do meetings.
Yeah.
But I'm also admitting I don't like meetings, right?
I'm a meeting minimalist.
Yeah, I am too. Like, we will text, we will email. Like, if we got to meet, make sure we really had to meet. So I don't miss the meetings. You know what? My last 2 years were so sweet. They gave me amnesia to the first 5, so it's hard to access it. I think prior to the first 5 years, I don't miss the guy I tried to be. The first 5 years. Here's the thing that's crazy, man. You start a church And especially when you're sent, right? I was sent from Gateway to plant Embassy City.
Yeah.
And so you're a spiritual son one weekend and you're a spiritual father the next.
Huh.
You don't even know what your dad voice is like. You don't even know how to sound. You don't even know how to talk. You're not even in your rhythm of whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't even know I didn't want to dress like I was closing a deal for oil and gas until 3 years after I left Gateway.
Right.
When I was at Potter's house, we dressed like it was a winter formal every weekend. Right? It was suit, tie, cufflinks. It was like the prom every weekend. And then I get to Gateway and it was like blazer and, some jeans or some nice slacks and you're closing a deal with oil and gas at Bob's Steakhouse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I realized, I'm like, I don't want to be either one of y'all, but I don't even know how I like to dress. I've dressed like y'all for so long. I don't even know what I like. So it took me 3 years before I realized, like, I want to just put on some jeans and a shirt and some sneakers. So it can take a while to just figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And it's part of the process, but man, I just don't miss how long it took me to give myself permission to be me. Nobody was actually telling me I couldn't be me. I just didn't give myself permission to be me.
Huh. What's the hardest part of leading your own organization? Or is it still honeymoon stage?
No. The hardest part is being patient. When you know what you saw in your head, but you got to wait for that to materialize, that's very difficult. It's just being patient and just allowing the process to take care of itself. You heard from God. You've got all these confirmations, and you got to go through all these iterations before it even looks like what you saw in your spirit.
Wow.
That takes a long time.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. How do you set boundaries to make sure that your work doesn't consume you? Because when you're working for someone else or you're working for a church, there are established rhythms, right?
Yep.
With your company, you could do 24/7. I mean, you can't, but you almost can.
Yeah, for sure.
So how have you set boundaries for yourself?
Well, one of the ways I set boundary for myself is by setting boundaries for my staff. Like once you give them boundaries and then tell them they're empowered to keep them, then they respect yours too.
Right.
I think a lot of, especially back, I spent, all of my time in the pastorate into the last 2 years, right? So I was always amazed at how many pastors built something for themselves that they didn't build for their staff.
We were talking about that yesterday.
Yeah.
Or you and I were talking about that before.
Yeah, for sure. That's right.
It was like, yeah, I'm going to take the weekend off, but you guys keep at it.
Right, exactly. We have a culture of rest here.
Yeah.
Except I still need these videos turned out.
Right.
Flipped over.
And by the way, I just had the idea this morning.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you can work all
Y'all can handle it. Y'all can handle it, right? But when you empower people to say, like, hey, you don't have to pick up the phone after 6. Right? Like, because I'm not picking up mine. Right? And if I call you, you don't have to pick it up.
Right.
And to let it go to voicemail.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? The voicemail's fine. And then I have some self-imposed things. So I think I only have 5 hours on social media a day. And then everything shuts down. And then at 7, all of my apps shut down.
That's cool. That's just an iPhone setting?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, 7 p.m., all of my apps shut down and they don't come back up until 7 a.m. And what I would have to do is, like, it gives you the option, I don't know who's the crazy person that can, like, one of the options is you can unlock this app for 60 seconds. I'm like, who can do that? Right? But the other one's 15 minutes. And then there's one like you can bypass it for the rest of the day.
Right.
Once it shuts down, I'm like, I guess there's something else I got to do with my life. Here's the other thing, Carey. This is one of my favorites. We went to church in Caicos 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I haven't taken it off.
Yeah.
So my cell phone is like a home phone in my pocket. Because I don't know anything until I get ready to pick up my phone. In the same way you would go out your day and then come home and like, boop, you have 13 messages.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's a home phone in my pocket.
That was a change 8 or 9 years ago, maybe not that long. Maybe it was 7 or 8 years ago. I made after my burnout. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
No, it was probably 10 years ago. It was like, do not disturb forever.
Yeah, forever.
And it's great. I was just on my phone very briefly because I had a meeting at 2 and I'm like, hey, can we push back this interview? That was it. But there were a bunch of text messages that came in while you and I have been talking.
Yeah.
But like my Apple Watch did not buzz.
Great.
I've got it on perpetual do not disturb.
Yeah, it's just...
I've got a few people programmed to ring through.
Yeah, my wife.
Yeah, my wife, my kids.
Yeah, for sure.
And they know, call me if it's a nuclear emergency.
That's right, absolutely.
And
for
most days, there are no nuclear emergencies.
For sure, absolutely.
I'm not that important.
Right. You know? Yeah, absolutely. And so we talked about how where do we operate from? And we get to operate from these incredible margins of rest. And so I do most of my calls on my 6-mile walk.
That's great. Walk and talk.
Walk and talk, right? Mm-hmm. And like I'm getting my exercise in, I'm doing it in the morning, and then throughout the rest of the day, when I have margin, I'll pick up my phone and I'll text you. I've never has there been a season in my life where I've left this many people on red as I do now.
Wow.
And I don't know how many I have right now. I'm afraid to check, but I'm going to get back to them.
Not today.
Not today or tomorrow or maybe this month.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, y'all. I love y'all. Yeah. I love y'all. But
we weren't
that guy.
For that. Mm-hmm.
He's off screen, but that guy's 13. He'll be 14 next month. And I got a 16-year-old that's starting to drive, and I got a wife and our staff, and we're like family.
Yeah.
And so everybody else is going to be here.
Yep. Yeah.
You know.
And as the platform grows, that's only going to get more intense.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the people that love you and understand you and that create that change. I had Erwin McManus here a few months ago.
Yeah.
And he made a statement that I thought was brilliant. We were talking about how like relationships can change as the rhythms of your life change. And what people, the change affects the people you love. And if they're not healthy, one of their retorts is, you've changed.
Yes. Yes.
And Erwin's response was, and you haven't.
Wow. Boom. Yeah.
Right?
Life is constant fine-tuning and reinvention.
It is.
It is for me.
Yeah.
It's like I was talking about that at breakfast today with a friend who worked with me 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not quite the same. I was probably harder on you than I would be today.
Yeah.
And we're still friends. It's all cool. But I'm like, people at Connexus now, because I've been there for 30 years, are talking about Carey 2.0. And that's a good thing.
That's good.
And Carey 1.0 wasn't a nightmare, but he needed some fine tuning.
Right, for sure.
He needed some
absolutely.
Help. He needed a lot of work. And I hope there's a Carey 3.0.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope
so. Why would we be done?
I have not arrived.
Yeah, me either. No, I'm very so I got trained in Stratop. I went through Patterson's deal. So I have Stratop. And, they do the thinking wavelength on it and try to find out.
I've never been trained.
Oh, no. Have you ever gone through Stratop?
No. I respect the people. I have friends who do it. And I'm like,
so dope.
You're so smart.
Yeah, they're so smart. So I'm a nerd, and I have strategy as one of my 5 and the strength finders. And so it just fits me. But the Stratop. And on the thinking wavelength, one of the questions is what is your aversion to change? And like 1 is like you hate it. 10 is like you could change clothes right now in front of everybody. I'm 10. I can change right now. So leaving California was the biggest change. But then when I had to transition from the Potter's house, it was like, season's up, bye. Everybody was like, what are you doing? I was like, bye. And then going to plant Embassy City, it was like, whoop, great. And then when it was time to leave Embassy City, I was like, I love you guys. I'm crying and I love you. Bye. And now in this iteration, it's like, I love this and I'll do it until he tells me to stop. And when he tells me to stop, when I tell you I'm out, I am out.
You're out.
Yeah. And then when he tells me pick back up comedy, I go straight into the comedy clubs.
Do you know why you're comfortable with change?
It's a good question. I don't think I've been asked that before. Why am I comfortable with change? I think I'm comfortable with change. Yeah, no, yeah. I'm gonna say the statement and then I'll give you my for instance.
Yeah.
I am comfortable with change because I trust God. And He is the God of my changes. And when I moved from California to Texas in 1997, which is to this day the most significant change I ever made, because every blessing that has ever come to me was because of that one statement: buy a one-way ticket to Dallas. Every statement.
You've heard that. You heard that voice.
I heard that voice a month before I moved here. My parents raised $400 for me in their church service. They bought me a one-way Greyhound bus ticket, and I packed 3 suitcases, and I had $400 to my name, and I took a 2.5-day ride to Texas, and I've been here ever since. Every bountiful blessing that I have is based on that one word.
Wow.
Okay. So I learned in the biggest change of my life, because I was a West Coast, like I'm West Side for life. I ain't ever leaving. And God brought me here. And that one change proved to me that I could trust God.
Man. You know, that's good. Even facing some change at this stage in my life or contemplating it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, He's been faithful so often.
Yeah.
It's like, and there's something fun about a new assignment.
Yeah, there is.
There's something fun about reinvention.
There is. Yeah. That's what I love about going back to comedy clubs now. Like I'm back in there with 20-year-olds, right? I'm at a completely different stage. And that's another thing I love about comedy is it doesn't matter how old you are. You can just dive back into it.
Right.
There's no ageism in comedy. You could be.
That's true.
Yeah, there's no ageism in comedy.
Yeah. I mean, Bob Newhart was doing it until the day he died.
Bob Hope.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Larry David.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you think about all these like really.
Yeah, Larry David's funnier as he's getting older.
That's right. Cosby did his last special on Comedy Central. I think he was 78 at the time, 2013.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's or he was definitely a septuagenarian. I don't know exactly what age he was, but I know he was in his 70s.
Yeah.
But with that said, so there's no ageism here. And I'm a completely different comic than I was in my 20s. My material's completely different. What I find funny is completely different. What I notice is completely different. And so I'm back at it, and it doesn't, like, I don't need a Netflix special, and I'm good enough to have one. So we'll just see. But I get to stand at the I'll tell you this, man. I didn't think this is the first time I've said this on. I haven't even said this on Basement. So standing at the cross section of faith and culture as a comic, I get to address stuff I never could as a preacher.
I believe that. You get to go there because if people are laughing, that's one thing I learned about, and the reason I try to have some kind of funny element in everything I talk about, except this podcast.
Yeah.
Is I never joke on this podcast. I don't know why. Anyway, it's this idea of being disarmed. Right.
Yep.
Like if I'm talking about money, in that first 10 minutes, I want people laughing, poking each other.
Right.
If I'm talking about sex, I want people laughing. I want people, because then they're like,
that's right.
My defenses are down. And
that's
then you go in and boom, there's the point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that why or different?
No, that's why. It's the only medium where people at a subconscious level turn their ability to be offended off.
Right.
They check it in at the door. Right. Like, you have to really, for a person to get offended at a comedy show, they didn't get the memo.
Right. They wasted that ticket.
Yeah. I was talking to a young lady, 32-year-old Jewish girl, bright, intelligent. And I was she works for a huge talent agency, and they're contemplating if they want me to be a part of their agency.
Wow.
So she says, I'm telling her I feel like I'm supposed to stand at the intersection of faith and culture and be able to talk my stuff the way Dave Chappelle and Hassan Minaj and Jon Stewart talk about their stuff. And she goes, I never tell anybody this, but I really love Louis C.K. And I said, you do know as a white woman, that should not be the statement that comes out of your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, I know, but he's a genius. I said, do you know why you're saying that? And she goes, because he's funny. I said, no, it's because he's a comic. If he was a professor of a university, you hate his guts.
Oh, yeah.
If he was a pastor of a church, you'd hate his guts. I said, it's only because he's a comic that you've checked your offense at the door and you can appreciate his genius. I said, I want to do the same thing as a believer in Jesus. Dave gets to talk all his stuff. John gets to give his perspective.
And you get to talk about your stuff.
I want to talk about mine.
That's cool. The only reason I'm saying thank you for being on the podcast is I got to catch a flight. That's the only reason.
I do not want you to miss your flight, bro.
I have been sitting on this couch for 4.5 hours.
You have, between mine and yours. It's so
been
true.
Amazing.
Thank you, man.
And Tim, you have such a gracious demeanor. I love your style, your approach, your innovation, and also your obedience. I know this wasn't your idea. Hey, I have a new strategy. It's like you're following what you believe.
That's right.
God's path for your life is. But to have authentic conversations and help people process their deconstruction.
Yeah.
Start to get away from destruction.
That's right.
To reconstruction.
That's right.
And even begin to open up a whole new dialogue.
Yeah.
And one last thing, what I was thinking, I don't think I completed this thought, but early on in the interview, I was thinking, a pastor who had a podcast where they went a little more uncensored. And I'm not talking about just dropping F-bombs or stuff like that, but like, here's what didn't make it to Sunday.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's the backstory. Here's the loop. Here's more of the struggle, more of the doubt.
Yeah.
Not incongruous.
Right.
With what you said on Sunday, but a supplement to.
Yeah.
To break that divide down.
Yeah.
I think could be a real ministry opportunity. And I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. Thanks for being so generous to have me on. It's great to have you on my show.
This is great. Anytime you're in Dallas, man, let's just connect.
Well, we'll hang out next time.
Yeah.
And if you were going to direct people to find you online, what's the easiest place?
The easiest place for us online, if you're on YouTube, it's just The Basement with Tim Ross. We also want you to download that B-Side app.
Yep.
You can be one of the 57,000 that downloads, or you can be one of the 8,100 that subscribes. And we want you to be a subscriber. And it's not just me in there. It's lots of conversations.
Yeah, who else is in there?
Carl Lentz is in there right now. Lecrae is in there right now, along with myself. We got a whole new roster of talent that we'll be signing between now and the end of the year. So 2025, we'll have some fresh voices that are a part of this as well. And people that want to partner with us and just allow their content to live on our platform. I'm super excited about that. We also are on iTunes and Spotify for all of our audio files. All of my Instagram handles start with Upset. So Upset the Gram on Instagram, Upset the Talk on TikTok, and Upset the X on X, formerly the Bluebird Twitter. I do want to caution your audience that if you go back in our archives, there have been 2 episodes where F-bombs were dropped. And
sensitive ears,
but it was censored. Like we beeped it. Like we didn't play it. But I was very, very passionate in those. We were covering some pretty tough topics, and my emotions ran high, and those words came out. If you Google me, they're going to make you think that all of my episodes are like this, that I'm the Dave Chappelle of podcasters. And
it sounds more like this.
It's this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this. Yeah. So thank you, Carey. I appreciate you.
Tim, appreciate you.
Love you.
Thank you. Love you too.